How's it going, everyone? For the few of you checking this out, I've got some animes here that I think are worth looking into if you're a fan of sports or just interested in finding something new to watch. Let's just get into it. The first anime I'm going to talk about is called Overdrive. It's a little bit older as it aired back in 2007, but it doesn't come off as dated. It's a bit hard to tell from the title, but a lot easier from the main image that this is an anime about bicycle racing. For many people, this probably doesn't sound all that interesting, and when I first watched it, I can't say I had high expectations. Even the introduction to the show doesn't provide a massive draw. Basically, our main character Makoto Shinozaki is a fairly self-conscious wallflower who hasn't really found his calling. Not only that, but he appears to be below average at most things he tries and is easily pushed around and even bullied, partially due to his small size. At the beginning, he doesn't even know how to ride a bike. Not unheard of, but definitely uncommon for a high school student. His first push to even try biking comes from his classmate Yuki Fukusawa, which of course is hard for him to ignore, as she's the popular girl in class and it's not hard to tell he's got his eye on her. The show slowly progresses in the first few episodes as he learns to ride a bike and begins to find his passion in it. Eventually, he tries to join his school cycling club with the support of Yuki, where he meets Yuki's older brother Yusuke Fukusawa and another club member named Koichi Tero. From here, our main character has his will tested and his skill and endurance challenged constantly. The overambitious Yusuke always strives to be the best and dreams of the Tour de France, expecting the same drive from all of his teammates. It's almost overwhelming, but Makoto does his best to keep up, while Koichi tries to rein in Yusuke's expectations and behavior. I won't just try to describe the whole plot development, but from here I can talk about the classic shonen journey that Makoto traverses as the goals and dreams of his teammates become his own, and they push towards them together. Stated like that, it sounds pretty generic, but Overdrive takes these classic shonen elements with the underlying romantic subplot and actually develops them both in a meaningful way. Not only this, the actual racing is much more realistic than anime and the shonen genre especially generally portray any kind of action. This and the characters actually have a fair amount of substance to them, and most of them genuinely grow throughout the show. It does cut off with a fair amount of content missing, as this 26 episode anime only covers the first quarter or so of the manga. So if you get caught up in the story, there's plenty more from where the anime leaves off. Not quite as good as Haikyu, but definitely one of the better overlooked sports animes out there, especially if you're interested in biking. Next on the list is an even more overlooked sports anime that I never hear talked about, called Days. A once again misleading name with a very obvious image, this time about soccer, or football, depending on where you're from. I'm going to stick to calling it soccer because that's what we call it in North America. Feel free to hate me. And it could be because I played soccer nearly my entire life, but this anime stuck out for me. At this moment it's rated 7.21 on my anime list, which is overall pretty decent, but I don't think this does it justice at all. If you're a fan of sports anime, just like soccer, or even just want something to keep you entertained for a few hours, Days is a good choice. It's a much more recent anime than Overdrive, as it aired in 2016, but unfortunately plays off some of the same tropes. To start with, for an initial description, I could copy and paste what I said about Makoto. I could apply it almost exactly to our new MC, Takushi Tsukamoto. It wouldn't entirely be accurate, but it's closer than it really should be. There's also the constant train to be the best, push past my limits, overcome all through sheer force of will. That's a main trait of Takushi, which is the ever-present overplayed shonen trope. However, through his perseverance, unlike many characters, there's a steady improvement in his play that's shown through glimpses in his actual ability, while generally using his conditioning as a crutch for his skill. But it was an interesting progression to actually watch unfold. So far I've hit you guys with the immediate statement that this is a surprisingly good show, while right after describing how generic it is. Luckily, in this contradiction I've described most of the cons in the show fairly succinctly, but for now I'll take a step back and talk about our other characters. The first one I want to mention is Chikako Ubikata, a rather nasty tsundere who eventually takes on the role of manager for their school, Seiseki. Unlike most characters where they just typecast any female into the role, she plays an active role in the games, is constantly contributing, and is a pillar of the team. She also plays off her tsundere nature and makes the archetype actually interesting. Another pivotal character is Jin Kazuma, a soccer prodigy who gives Tsukushi his first taste of soccer and becomes one of his first genuine friends. He's a guide or even teacher who on numerous occasions displays his talent and is a shoo-in for the all-star roster that Seiseki always produces. Without just listing off every other character on the show, as there's many who play such big parts throughout the show, I'll quickly mention Isahito Mizuki, my personal favorite character of the show. He's the team captain, an incredible player, but so blissfully unaware and apathetic, yet strangely caring. The cool upperclassmen you can count on to do what needs to be done, while still being the most entertaining comedic element in the show. But the actual realism, with minimal supernatural stunts or abilities, makes the games a lot more interesting to follow, and my favorite part that deviates completely from most shonen and sports anime is the obstacles the characters face. Untimely accidents and bad calls you can expect from a sports anime. Shortcomings and disappointments mixed with joys and successes that distance itself from most shows are what you can find in Days. In my opinion, I'd consider it a great anime, perhaps slightly biased as I mentioned before, but definitely underrated. Also, this series is 24 episodes, very similar to Overdrive except its manga is still ongoing. The final anime I'm going to talk about this video is the highest rated of the three, coming in at 7.86. A very solid rating and deserving of at least this, if not a bit higher. This one's called Baby Steps and is about tennis. It's a 2014 release and the most popular of the three, and it's honestly a bit hard to say why. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to hint at it being bad, but it's one of those shows that just has a certain charm to it. A name like Baby Steps, hinting at the slow beginning to a great journey, an opening song called Believe in Yourself that doesn't pump you up like you'd expect coming from a sports anime, but is still strangely catchy. Baby Steps has a lot going for it that's hard to put into words, so I'll just talk about what I can. To start with, it's noticeably longer, coming in at 2 parts each being 25 episodes. The manga is also finished, but the anime ends at a point a bit shy of a third through the manga. But back to the actual anime. Something which I'm very excited to say about this anime is, unlike the previous two, our main character, Eiichiro Murao, departs heavily from the standard. He's an incredibly hardworking honor student who constantly goes out of his way to assist his classmates, and although being fairly shy, is still basically revered by those around him. It's because of this nature that he originally gets involved with Natsu Takazaki, a rather ditzy girl from a neighboring class. Unlike many protagonists that came before him, he wasn't casually lured into his sports destiny by the siren that is the eventual love interest, but first has his interest sparked by his friend Kojiro Kageyama and a well-timed poster for a local tennis club. This interest is sparked by his rational plan to stay in shape and fits into his perfectly ordered life. This leads him to his eventual second run-in with Natsu, where he first tries tennis and completely overdoes it on his first attempt. Eventually, he begins to pick it up and learns the game through his incredibly methodical study of the game. This is one way where, compared to the first two animes, we see some incredibly unrealistic elements. There are also some characters who have completely wacky playstyles that are overly stylized and completely personalized, like you would expect from opponents in a shonen anime. It does emphasize the fact that in many sports, certain players excel in a certain playstyle, but it definitely takes it over the top. One of the best developed plot lines is actually the romantic one. Almost every shonen manga has underlying romantic tension, if not the classic, both characters are obviously attracted but can't say it, or even the interrupted confession scenes. However, Baby Steps creates a romantic story that doesn't infringe on the main sports plot, but constantly develops with realistic obstacles as well as actual steps forwards. It is certainly one of the things that stood out to me the most by the time I finished the anime, and I think was one of the numerous things that helped create its charm, partially due to the innocence of it. Also, I could have delved a bit deeper into the character pool the show has to offer, as there are many with important roles, but the story centered around Eiichiro and Natsu, and their importance stands noticeably above everyone else, so I thought it best to focus on them. Although I'm sure many lovers of this anime will feel slighted by me not mentioning Soji or Takuma, so I'll just say they're the talented bad boys and leave it with that minimalist description. I could go on for quite a while with this or either of the previous animes I mentioned, but I'll finish with them for now. I just wanted to put them out there and hopefully at least one of them piques someone's interest. And until next time, I'm going Ghost.